Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, hola, good morning, good morning, good morning, Allah, hola, and Allah. Come to that, assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10. Thank you so much for joining me yet again. If you're a new watcher, thank you for coming along. If you're somebody who's back again, then thank you so much for returning yet again for another show. We're here every day. We're James Alexander Estate Agents. We're based in Norbury, which is SW16, and we're sandwiched between Streatham to the north, Croydon to the south, because no one really knows where we are, because we're quite a small area relatively here in London, a Zone 3 commuting area, lovely area full of lovely people, and we talk about property all day, every day. How are you? I hope you're well. If you are watching, do like and share and comment so we know you're there, because it's nice to feel like I'm not just staring at a camera sometimes. Although I did get a lovely email this morning from Joe. Thank you, Joe. Hi, if you're watching. And I must mention, you know, we are raising money. Let me get a banner up so I can show you at the moment for Christmas hampers. And we're doing this for the Liberty Food Bank in Norbury. I didn't even know Liberty existed. They're actually a church. They've made the most beautiful church out of an old warehouse building in Norbury with their own hands. Literally, they've built this church from nothing. And it's a beautiful building. They're lovely people. I really, really do like them. And they've got a food bank, which every Wednesday they dish out food to the needy. And they're supported by many local communities. And the plan is that Janet Royal started a project to try and get Christmas hampers to all the people that use the food bank this year. And in order to do that, we're trying to raise £3,000. And we have so far raised, I think it's 1,860, thanks to your kind donation. So thank you so much if you have donated. And I just thought I'd mention a few of the people that have been incredible supporters. There've been a lot of anonymous people as well. And I always think, wow, that's so generous to do it anonymously as well. There's something very kind about that. So thank you for all of those of you who have chosen not to disclose your names. But to those that have, the Norbury Ahmadiyya community, and that's our Muslim community here in Norbury, have just given last night £250, which is amazing. Thank you so much to our Muslim community. Thank you so much. It's very, very kind of you. And can I also say that I know that they support the food bank generally with food donations as well. So amazing support from them. Thank you so much. And then to, and I hope I pronounce this right, Guillaume, I think it's Guillaume, a Frenchman who has donated £100. Thank you so much, Guillaume. That's so generous of you. Marcia Dixon says, happy to support. Triuna Limited, you're making a great difference to the community. Thank you so much for your donation. Yvonne Nazareth, thank you. John and Sue, Lydia M, Aisha, so many people. Peter Croydon, Eileen Ahmad, Tony H, Tony Hooker, that'll be, thank you, Tony, Ross Dunning, and Marie. It's just so lovely. And anybody who donates, we will mention you live right here on TV. Do you want to get on the telly? Give us a donation. It need be not a lot of money, be £1 if you like, whatever it is. If you want to get a mention right here, I will mention every day, everyone, and thank everybody that is giving to this very worthy and local cause. So thank you so much for your efforts. I'm excited that we're nearly at the £2,000 mark. A lot of people said, how are you going to get anywhere near £3,000? And we're already nearly 2/3 of the way there. Can you push us over that £2,000 mark? Well, we're 1860 now. I'd be grateful if you could help towards it. Let's get into some property news and a few things I want to talk about. I'm going to talk today about what's hot and what's not in terms of areas, because I think people always love that, don't they? What are the cold postcodes? What are the hot ones? And I'll explain how we measure that as well. So let's start with the general property headlines for you today. This one from City AM and The Express. The latest UK house price index from the Office for National Statistics and Land Registry reveals that the average house price in the UK has hit a record high of 269,945. That's an average of 28,000 has been added to a typical price over the past year. Values increased by 11.8% by the year to September, with this up on the 10.2% annual growth rate recorded before. Well, it wasn't that long ago, and indeed it was this year that I was commentating that the average house price in the UK is below 250. I think it was about 245,000. Significant uptick, and most of the areas have seen very steep climbs, and not here in London. Wales has in fact seen the steepest climb, with an average price rise of 15.4% over the year, Scotland at 12.3%, and England at 11.5%, which is mostly northern England, I have to say. Northern Ireland's up 10.7% as well. So it's interesting to see that. Talking of Northern Ireland, there is a house price boom going on over there, as there is in much of the world. You know, I've said for a while, people have said, you know, this house price boom thing, it's all about the stamp duty incentive that the government wrongly put in place. Well, the government did put it in place. I think they put it in place for the right reasons, because they wanted to stimulate the markets generally in a difficult time, but actually it didn't need it. And evidence, Northern Ireland, evidence, America, house prices in America are up 20% in some places. And it's a result of the lifestyle changes and the fact that people are seeing their mortality right in front of their face, sadly seeing their relatives sometimes pass. And it does make you think, if I'm going to make a move, I should make it now. Of course, compounding that is the fact that many can now telecommute and they're doing the Zoom thing. And therefore, hey, I can live anywhere. What we're also finding now, though, interestingly, is people are going back to the offices. London is opening up, and that's lovely to see. Let's hope we don't get another lockdown over the Christmas period, and we'll see what happens there. It certainly seems to be positive at the moment. There's an article on the Cornwall property market. I'll come back to Cornwall in a minute, but first of all, the Cornwall housing crisis this is about. And Cornish landlords either selling up or partnering with Airbnb. It's a nightmare for locals who are trying to find somewhere to live. You can get that, can't you? Get agent Colby Short says, while Cornwall has always been a popular choice for second home buyers and the rental market investors, demand has grown ever higher as a result of the pandemic. Many have chosen to move out of the city and into the country, and Cornwall has proven popular due to the relative level of property affordability when compared to other areas of the southern market. But it's not quite so affordable now because prices have jumped up considerably. British land, this is an interesting article. Where's this one? It's in the Times, and you may think it's not really significant, but what's important about British land is they own a lot of office space and they have bounced back into profit. And this suggests about the death of the office might be exaggerated, which is interesting and good news, I think, for London as well, particularly. Barclays mortgage customers have actually had reason to complain because they've been told they've got false missed payments, which is an extraordinary thing. Over 55s are increasingly turning to equity release. This is not financial advice, by the way, but equity release is a facility where you can release up to, depending on your age, and it's the one situation where you can get a higher percentage loan if you're older, because the time between when you take the loan and when you pass, the point when you pass is when they take back the property and take their profits quite often. So in fact, you can get a higher percentage the older you are with equity release. And if you have no relatives and no one else to answer to, sometimes it's the right answer. As I say, this is not financial advice, but certainly what we find is that it can be the case that if you don't have anyone to answer to or anyone that you'd like to give to in your retirement, or later on when you pass, then there's no reason why equity release can't be a good thing for you. So although a lot of people think it's full of crooks, it's actually not. It's a very regulated sector now, and it's got better over the years. Apart from that, inflation has surged to its highest rate for 10 years. Data from the Office for National Statistics shows that inflation has surged to its fastest pace in almost 10 years, hitting 4.2% in October. The rate, which is the highest since November 2011, is far higher than the 3.1% recorded in the year to September, and more than double the Bank of England's inflation rate. The increase in the Consumer Prices Index was driven by a sharp increase in gas and electricity prices, and also in part to an increase in hospitality prices following the removal of the cut in VAT. The increase comes just days after the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey told MPs that he was very uneasy about rising inflation with a jump to 4.2%, adding pressure to the bank to increase rates. Well, of course, when you have inflation at some point, the Bank of England will step in and they will take control. But just to put some perspective and the opposite taint on that, we're talking about minuscule raises in rates, chances are. We're probably talking about 0.25 basis points. If you add that on to what your loan is at the moment, it's probably not going to make a significant difference to your life. So although it's important, for most of us, it won't be significant. What it might do is jar confidence slightly, and that does affect the market ahead. Now, what's hot and what's not? A few statistics for you that I thought you might find interesting today. Number one, looking at changes, because, we've heard a lot, haven't we, about the northern powerhouse and how northern prices are going up and coastal prices and all the rest of it, which is true. But let's look at it over time. If we look at the changes since the peak of 2007, where the property markets are right now, the least increase overall is 4%, and that's in the northeast. And the maximum increase over that time is, wait for it, drum roll, London at 66%. That's even given today's statistics where we've seen Brighton and the likes go up substantially. Talking of which, what's hot and what's not. Looking at the markets, this is an interesting measure. The source of this is the advisory. And this is about the buyer demand, a percentage of properties which is advertised and under offer, and the percentage of properties which is advertised and under offer gives us an indication of how hot that particular market is, meaning how popular houses in that particular spot are. And the top market in the UK right now is Brighton. And the postcode BN42 has 91% of properties that have been advertised under offer. That is huge. And it just goes to show Brighton is forever a popular place, but right now, absolutely massively off the scale. It's still really hot there, and we can see the market sustaining there given that. Other places that are hot with 88% are Aldeburgh, Walsall, Bristol, Yeovil, and Poole. And they're all very hot markets. And then looking at the other end of the scale, what are the cold markets? The markets with a much lower volume. West 1 comes in at just 9% of the properties under offer. But we are talking about a very fickle market there. The top of the market's always quite fickle. And I do suspect that the market for the top end will improve massively over the next year, mainly on the back of Hong Kong Chinese coming to the UK, many of whom are fabulously wealthy. And that on top of that, they will compete with the Chinese as well. And they are already a large sector of that market. So many of them will take the opportunity. It's many of those people have invested in the UK already in properties which they rent out in central London. But now they're coming for good. They're coming to live. So we can expect them to spend more. So the post 10 million market, we expect to be really busy. And the market over 5 million will also be busy, but we think the market above 10 million will be even busier with the people that the super rich that are coming over and actually instead of looking for a property to invest in and maybe come on a holiday, now they're looking at a family home and they'll want something substantial and they'll want it dead right, and that will mean paying more money out. The other thing I wanted to mention today was auctions. You know, many people are approaching us and saying, is it still possible to sell a property this side of Christmas? Yes, it is. And auctions, remember, hammer down. It's a beautiful thing. Out goes, once that hammer goes down, the instruction is sold. And it can be a really handy thing if you want peace of mind that you've got the best price from an investor. You know, it can be a way of making sure that your sale goes through. Once the hammer goes down, 10% is parted with by the buyer. Contracts are exchanged at the point when that hammer physically or metaphorically goes down on an online auction, as most auctions are online still at the moment. But the beauty of that is, of course, once that hammer's down, 28 days later, the money is in the bank. The deal is done. And it's a fabulous thing. It's a beautiful thing if you're used to the way the property can market. You know, the property market can be so slow and drag its heels so badly. Often, I have to say, the fault is with lenders. And most often, I have to say, some solicitors, especially the conveyancing groups, which quite often are struggling to cope with the demand. And quite often we have banks and banks of assistants with maybe one licensed conveyancer or solicitor policing all of those people. And therefore their in tray is ever bigger because it has to go over their eyes before it can be signed off. Often they'll find difficulties, which they then kick back to an administrator who then has to do work, then look at it and then go back to that person, go back in the queue again. There's a massive drain on the way the system works. And we really do need to improve on that, I think. And one of the reasons is that many of the corporates have tie-ups with many of these massive online conveyancing groups, and they take huge commissions from them in order to recommend to you so that they can take a bite of that cherry pie, if you will. I would say, you know, when you're looking at a conveyancing company or solicitor, make sure you go on reviews, make sure you go on recommendation. If you don't know who they are, make sure you know someone who knows them, who's dealt with them and been satisfied. You know, recently I mentioned before that we had somebody calling up and saying, do you know a good cheap solicitor? And I said, I know a good one and I know a cheap one, which is it you want. It's really, really important that you get a high quality person. We have someone, she's been interviewed right here with us, and we can share her details with you if you would like to go ahead with that. I'm hoping tomorrow to have a really interesting character on the podcast for you, which, by the way, has just hit over 500 downloads. So we're very pleased with that. Thank you so much for all of you, those of you that have downloaded and listened to the podcast. I'll put on screen now how you can find that. Aside from that, I've got an interesting valuation today on an investment property. Really looking forward to that. Got some negotiations to do. Trepidation there. Hope we can get through those and keep the sale on board for somebody. And apart from that, the weather here in Southwest 16, it is cold and bright. Nice photography weather, actually. The sun's very low in the sky at this time of year, though, isn't it? It's very much kind of sunglasses weather. Not for the pose, but for just to get that sun out of your eyes. So please do give generously as far as the appeals concerned to Liberty Food Bank. And remember, we will grace you with your name mentioned right here on Ken at 10 if you give. And we'd be so grateful because there's such a lovely bunch of people. And remember, you're giving people a Christmas hamper that aren't expecting anything. They're glad of food, let alone a Christmas hamper. So it'd be a lovely thing to do. We hope you agree. And it's for people right here in your area in Norbury. So do think about that. Even if you can give £1, £5, £10, doesn't matter what it is. Just a gesture of it would be really kind. And by doing that, you kind of make others feel like they should be doing it. So I'd like to be coming on the show tomorrow and mentioning more people. Please help me do that by giving generously. Thanks very much for watching today, and stay safe. Look after your family and friends. We'll be back tomorrow with another Ken at 10. Until then, have a fantastic day.